Today, I'm really excited to share a hot one. This is an investor's special. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, over 3,400 square feet. But the most exciting thing about this home on Road 425B is that this one home can be turned into a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home, split into 3 units, and then combined into 6 different listings that can maximize revenue, occupancy, and return on investment on Airbnb. 12.7 plus cash on cash return. This is a great one. Let's dive into it. I think you're going to be excited about this and you're going to reach out and want to make an offer. Let's share the listing. I want to show you this home at 39979 Road 425B. First, we'll walk through the listing and just see some of the photos and then talk about the floor plan and what can be done. And then we're going to have a conversation with Kyle Collette where we're going to do a deep dive on the return on investment. He's going to walk through some of the comparable properties that he has in the area that he's managing under his Smoothwater Properties brand. And we'll take a look at the revenue breakdown, the comps, the expenses, and we'll get to the bottom line. So first of all, let's look at the listing. The first thing you'll notice is a very unique Adobe Brick constructed home. This is in the heart of Oakhurst, walking distance to shops and restaurants. And as you can see, beautiful architecture, very unique. Enter the home and in the foyer, a little desk there, and then a wide, expansive living area, dining area, and then open to the kitchen. And you'll notice the tall ceilings. And again, very well appointed, very well finished, a truly custom home. So I'm just gonna page through these quickly, and then we will get into the analysis of both what can be done with the floor plan as well as the return on investment metrics that are important for you as an investor. So just to give you a sense, we're going to do a walkthrough at the end so you'll see the house, how it flows and how it can be divided. I think that will cover the basics on the listing. This is the primary suite, which is just very, very luxurious and open and expansive. But let's jump over here to the floor plan. What you notice, this is the structure that you see as you drive up, the unique rounded Adobe Brick construction. As you enter the front door, you enter into the living room, the bedrooms are off to the side, and you have that open dining and living area, as well as a full bath in this section. You pass through this doorway into what they're currently using as a billiard room, and you'll see a bedroom off to the right that's been converted into 2 smaller bedrooms, an office area which is actually a beauty salon right now, and then a half bath. And that half bath would be converted into a full bathroom to really take this house to the next level. And then this whole other end of the house is the primary suite, full bath, very well appointed, beautiful stone. This is a luxury space for somebody who's renting the whole house. And we would convert this into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms, 3 full baths. And that could be rented very successfully on Airbnb as a large home that can accommodate probably up to 14, 16 guests. But that's actually not the most exciting part and the reason this is such a good investment. What we can do now is divide this home into 3 separate units. So you enter in this first unit, that would then be your 2-bedroom, 1-bath with the living, dining, and kitchen. And this, of course, has the external door. This middle section, number 2, also has an external door. And that, again, would be probably 2 bedrooms, kitchenette, and a full bath. And then unit number 3 is this luxurious primary suite, which would be turned into an individual unit. But the real power is now we can combine these. So you've got one listing, that's the whole house. You've got 1 plus 2, which is now a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, can accommodate a pretty large group. You've got 2+3, which is ideal for a small family. The parents stay in the primary, the kids stay in the middle section here, but then this would be separate from this 2-bedroom unit. So there you have 6 individual listings that would be on Airbnb. The calendar would be managed so you don't have any double bookings. But now you can accommodate a whole range of group sizes depending on the season and demand. Because this house is close to town, smaller groups in particular like to walk to town, and that gives you that option as well for all of the smaller listings. So with that, we're going to jump into the conversation with Kyle, where we're really going to get into the numbers at a great level of detail. I want you to take a hard look at this opportunity and then reach out and we'll arrange a personal showing, or quite frankly, you can just make an offer and we'll work that out during the contingency period. Look forward to working with you.
I'll just intro. We've got Kyle Collette here. He's an agent on my team, and he's also a short-term rental management expert. He manages something like 35 properties up here in the mountains, and we've been working together, analyzing some investment opportunities, and we found a great one. So for today's video, I was just going to have Kyle walk through his analysis. And again, what's beautiful about this is Kyle's analysis assumes that he's managing. So this is a painless investment. You will not have to self-manage to get these returns. Kyle and I have both been to the property. We're going to share the walkthrough at the end of this video, but we decided we'd just start out looking at the deal and looking at the numbers. So with that, Kyle, I'll turn it over to you and you can kind of walk through this property on Road 425B in Oakhurst and explain why we think it's such an exciting opportunity.
Road 425B, the biggest thing here is that it's got a pretty clean option to actually have 3 units on the property. And it's really hard to find anything for 3 units in this area, and 3 units can do extremely well typically from a overall cash flow perspective. It does need a decent amount of work to get it to there, but also the interior of the main house is very nice, very modern cabin feel, which is what guests are looking for these days. And then the other huge plus that we're seeing great success with is being able to actually walk to town and go to coffee shops and restaurants. And we're seeing that very successful with one of the properties that I also did a similar analysis and was one of my clients, where we bought it, rehabbed a 3-2, split it into 2-1-1s. They both have nice exterior spaces and also some pretty good views, and added hot tubs to them. And you could still walk to town from that property. That one's just really blowing it out of the water as far as the market goes. Extremely good occupancy, extremely good revenue. It's still, a little too soon to tell. We've been realistically operating for about 7 months now, so still got a second half, but it's really on track to be crossing over 100.
Let me cut in, and I think you touched on it there in terms of the occupancy, but what's really helpful about having these multiple units is that we're not as affected by seasonality, right? So the big houses tend to really only book in the summer and the high season, but couple, small family, a couple of couples traveling together, they travel year round. So that house that you're referring to had a fantastic February, right? And
Yeah.
everybody else was vacant in February. So I think that's why just applying the success of that property and how it could have carry over into this one, that's one of the reasons why we see this as such a good opportunity.
And these two properties are roughly a mile from each other, if that. You got to cross the street, but they're very close, so the comps are good and strong on that. So let's first thing we'll go over is kind of the initial expenses. Pretty much from all the units that I've had to furnish in this space, we're going to be roughly around $30,000 pretty much across the board. The good thing is about this one, usually for units with full kitchens, then the amenity cost is a little bit more because you have 3 kitchens to basically supply everything for. But that 29,000 just comes from recent setups. This is assuming a standard 20% down. You could bring this down to 10%. It's a good conversation to have with your lender about those items. And I actually have my loan officer license as well. So that's something that I can explore. There's been some good changes in the 10% down region where rates are like that 7% rate. It seems like the jump up from doing a 7% rate at 10% to a 20%, there's negligible benefits on the overall yearly cash on cash ROI because the principal and interest payment just jumps up too much. It does increase your cash on cash ROI, but not as much as you'd like to think. In the lower rates, that makes a huge difference. So, closing costs, we've been a part of several different closings, and these are going to be your prepaids. This is a very rough estimate of 15,000, but that should be right around the point. It could go up to 20 or maybe down a little bit to like 13. Definitely pretty dependent on the price of the home. We're 650, so we're not closer to this $1 million range. But that's heavily influenced by the property taxes and also your homeowner's insurance. Having to open an impound account, you can reduce some of these closing costs by avoiding an impound account. But yeah, so and then inspections, Lenny could probably speak to inspections, but from the ones that we've seen, it's roughly 2,000 for well, septic, home inspection, and pest inspection on average.
We can probably bring it down a little under that, but it's kind of a rounding error on this analysis. So
Right.
that's a good assumption to use.
Yeah. So now we get into, how to make this property really sing. And that's going to be hot tubs, right? So hot tubs and privacy fences to be able to really create separate exterior outdoor spaces. We already have one hot tub, so that helps quite a bit. But
Yeah.
basically, two additional hot tubs, and the smaller four-person hot tubs you can get for $2,500 to $3,000. And then basically the electrical can probably be somewhere around 3,500. You can maybe get a deal on the fact that you're doing two at the same time. So there's some efficiency there, but probably somewhere between 3,500 and $4,500 on that. So we're looking at like 10,000 for that, and then roughly another 5,000 to be able to create the fences that are going to be needed to properly give privacy for the pathways to the back of the unit and have that access very clear for the guests. So there's some interesting components where we have to kind of corner off some areas, and we can show some photos in a bit, but I want to focus on the numbers right now.
So let me just jump in there and reinforce the point. So the opportunity is taking a home and actually dividing it up into three listings for Airbnb to maximize occupancy and revenue. But of course, it's not entirely free because 3 units now equals 3 hot tubs. And as you said, 3 attractive outdoor spaces. But net, you're getting great return on that additional investment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so go move on to the other construction items.
Yeah, the construction items, this is again just from looping it back again and again to just the experience level of actually doing a decent amount of these rehab projects and outdoor projects. So I've recently added a full bathroom to a property. A full bath was 20,000, and adding a half bath would be roughly 10,000. That's how I'm estimating that. Cleaning up the outdoor space, we gotta gravel the area, maybe add some fake grass, and then add some string lights to at least one of the areas. Well, I want to add string lights to I think one other area, but that's just for one unit, and I expect that to be somewhere around the $5,000 to $10,000 range. And then we break into the middle unit that we're looking at, 2-1, and we've got to remove a wall from one of the bedrooms because it just doesn't make sense. There's not a hallway to access both of these small.
Right.
You'll see the photos and it makes sense, right? So we've got to remove a wall to just create a standard bedroom there. And then we've got to create some small kitchen spaces, no ovens. They're just kind of more like kitchenettes. And we have a good idea on that. And honestly, we could maybe save quite a bit of money on that. But I think 30,000 in general is pretty safe. So right, 5 to 10 for the outdoor, 10 for the half bath, and then probably 5 to 10 to create the small kitchens if we really want to bring a sink over there. We see great success with the sink. One of the units might not need a sink, but we might be able to do both. So I think we could save the most costs probably on the kitchen and how much we do of that. But I'm also just trying to give us some buffer on what could happen with the half bath.
Yeah, you get in there and maybe you see some unforeseen circumstances. But I just want to also jump in here. So Kyle is giving these numbers and these estimates based on two important areas of his experience. Number one, he knows what works. So when we say what works, I'm talking about you make an investment and you get a return in increased occupancy, higher nightly rate, more revenue. So we're not just throwing these numbers out. Kyle's actually proposing improvements based on his experience with all these other listings, some of which have been remodeled or upgraded or expanded. So this is an informed recommendation based on experience. And then, the numbers also, since you've had the experience, right? You've worked with the contractors, you've bought materials, you're not just throwing something out there based on a rough estimate. A lot of this is grounded in, actual projects that you've done. So the point is, when we get to the bottom line and are looking at returns, just understand that every line item here is informed by real world experience, and you can be confident that this is a very accurate analysis of this property. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, you hit it on the head there. Yeah, pretty much. And then one thing that you mentioned, I would like to address, give some practicality. The kitchen aspect, adding those kitchens, we see direct revenue reduction, whether you have no sink or having a sink, right? That right there is $5,000 on yearly revenue.
Wow.
It could, and sometimes even goes up to 10,000. Again, I can show some of the comps that I pulled, but basically, and I'm even seeing it right now with the duplex that we did on Live Oak, where one that's just a coffee bar, no sink, doesn't have a full kitchen, where the other one has a full kitchen, and I'm looking at 40 to 45,000 for that one, and I'm looking at 50 to 55, maybe even 60 for a full kitchen for that other unit.
Yeah, I'm just reinforcing the point again. Even though you will have guests that don't require it, if your pool is bigger, you can draw from a bigger pool and increase your occupancy rate. And ultimately, your return is going to be based on your revenue per available night, right? So an empty night means no revenue, but you still have all your expenses. So you're just really talking about the appeal of having the kitchen, broadening your pool of guests that you're going to attract, translating that into increased occupancy and ultimately more revenue. And it definitely pays off to spend the money to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those items alone,
Okay.
mentioning those are roughly 5 to 10,000 to add the kitchen spaces with the sinks. If we're talking about another $5,000 in revenue on both of those properties, if you only did a coffee bar, that right there, it's pretty much a year ROI just on that, right?
Okay. Yeah, just touch on the last items and let's get to the expenses and return.
Sure. So mini splits, you gotta have separate heating and AC for each unit. We've recently done these 35 to 4,000, but usually you get a deal if you do two. So I recently did one that did two and it was 7,000. So that's where that comes from. Design is an estimate for having our team do the full design. And when we do that, we always see the best results compared to when an owner wants to do the design themselves. And then the Airbnb setup or onboarding fee, that's basically the fee, and that's separate from design and furniture assembly, right? Compared to the onboarding is let's get all the different technology, all the different soft items and documentation that's required for getting the property guest ready. So furnishing a place and then making it Airbnb operational, right?
Right.
So that kind of covers that. Again, principal and interest. I always like to separate these items. So like your actual monthly mortgage payment is somewhere around 4.7K at a 7% interest rate. That's just your principal and interest. We got property taxes, which is based off of the Madera County, which is 1.25 based off of the home price. And then we have homeowners insurance, which we do roughly. This is probably one of the large costs, and they vary by thousands of dollars depending on how big the property is. The good thing is about these 3 units, they're all under one structure. If you have detached units, you have to get a separate policy, and that pretty much almost 1.5x's your insurance policy. I have a 3 unit place that has another detached one. I'm paying $12,000 for insurance on that one, 12 to 13 for that one. So having it all under the same roof definitely helps you be able to maintain one policy. Then what you're expected to kind of pump your septic system, roughly every 3 years. Water and trash, really, I believe this is probably on a well, but like our trash, for this amount of occupancy, it kind of averages out what a Madco pays. Don't have to take out a Madco, and then some months during the summer where you have to do it a couple times. So again, that's kind of where the average is.
Actually, I was just going to jump in and explain because a lot of people that are looking at mountain properties for the first time may not realize you don't just pay to have somebody pick up your trash can every week. We use bear-proof dumpsters,
Yeah.
right? And then you basically have them dumped when they're full. So the good news is if your occupancy is down and you're not filling up your trash expense correlates more or less with your occupancy. So, I mean, this is a good estimate to use as an average, but the reality is when you're super busy, you'll be paying more, and when you're not as busy, you'll be paying less.
So Wi-Fi, we're in town, so we should be able to use Vive, which should be roughly $90 a month. That's around what we have paid, and since it's all under one roof and they're pretty close proximity, some Wi-Fi extenders will do the trick here. Should be pretty straightforward. Landscaping for this one, basically, we mainly focus on fireproofing, but honestly, this one's pretty low maintenance. It could even be a little bit less,
Yeah.
but there's no grass to take care of. That immediately is going to increase your landscaping costs if you actually have a lawn to take care of. Have that here. Pretty much everything is really seasonal. So you pretty much in the mountains, depending on the house, we do landscaping, some weed eating twice a year. We do it April, May-ish, and then October, November.
Again, the difference from what somebody might expect in the suburbs, this isn't paying somebody to come mow your lawn every other week. This is a couple of times a year to do the weed eating. Over the course of the year, it should average something like the $75 a month there. But, a lot of these expenses aren't what you would find in the city, right? This is mountain living and it is on a different time scale. So yeah, let's jump ahead. You've got some allowances you're going to set aside to cover capex and repairs. Some months you may have zero, some months it might be double that. But based on your experience, that's something that you're going to see that is good assumption. Because all we're really doing here is trying to use the best data inputs to come up with a projection. Ultimately, it is going to be what it is, but these are again informed by your experience, so they should be very accurate.
Yeah, that's pretty much the point there. And that's where hot tubs come from. This house is run on propane, so you have quite a big expense during the winter time where electric could go down a little bit. And then we have our technology fee. That's something that's built into our contract, and it's all the technology that you would have if you were self-operating. So that's kind of where that fee generally comes from. Then we have our cleaning fees, which is again similar concepts and pulling from just the averages of what cleanings are for multiple different units of similar types. So basically on a year basis, then just divided by 12. and then our management fee,
Yeah.
which is going to be removing the cleaning fees from the monthly revenue and then multiplying that by 20%.
Let me just jump in to reinforce that point so they don't miss it. You're going to collect the cleaning fee from the guest effectively and pass that through to pay the cleaners. And then you're going to charge a management fee on the revenue that they're generating that doesn't include the cleaning fee or the taxes and the other things that the guests are paying. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands that you're not double dipping, collecting a cleaning fee and then charging a management fee on that cleaning fee. You are actually managing the cleaning, but you're doing that all for the 20% of the gross lodging income, right? So
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that. All right. Sorry to interrupt. Keep
No,
going.
you're good. 20% of the nightly rate is that's what I charge. So separate from the cleaning fee and any sort of taxes that they pay, right? And now we get into the monthly sort of revenue through the three different types of units. We've got the large space. That's this really, really large 2-1 that we're going to be able to add a game room and really be able to increase the overall attractiveness of that property. And that one already has the hot tub as well. So that's where we kind of get that rate. But again, it is still a 2-1. So that's where we do have significant revenue, but the square footage surprisingly is a lot bigger than the other two
Yeah.
units, but it doesn't go up quite as much. And that really has to do with the fact of the units being close to proximity of town. We just see a lot of demand for these smaller house stays. So, unlike the 5 bedrooms, retreat type properties where people are going to just stay at the property, it's not that important to be so close to town, and people want to kind of be more in the secluded space. But it's a good thing that we are doing the 2 bedroom option there, even though the square footage probably could fit another 2 bedrooms just in
Yeah.
that area alone. But it is very, very nice, inviting. It'll get fantastic reviews, and there is potential for this number right here to actually produce this $64,000 number. So then we go into the next unit, which is kind of how you want to configure it, but I just basically did a very, very nice 1-1 on the comps that I pulled for that. And it is a good size and really could be potentially a 2 bedroom as well. But I think that it's kind of depends on what you use or what you want to do about the salon space and how that's utilized. But some room for maybe a little bit of improvement here as well. And then our last unit, which is the primary suite, basically at this 182, I have studios that are doing 41,000 with hot tub that don't have as good of a walking location. So direct
Yeah.
pull from that. So yeah, honestly, all of these have some conservatism, and I think the high potential is potentially even greater. But we do also have to factor in the fact that all the walls are shared, and so that does sometimes detract from guest booking as well. One that
Yeah.
it's totally by itself, that is secluded but is still walking to town and doesn't have any neighbors and you have your own space, that'd be a more attractive option for pretty much anyone.
Yeah, so let me jump in here, and I'm probably going to edit this video in such a way that they have a sense of what we're talking about, probably include the floor plan because it's hard to visualize. But I just want to touch on something else because you and your team are experts at optimizing revenue. So again, these are assumptions based on similar units that Kyle's got experience with. But if you see an opportunity, if people are loving that primary suite, which you and I have been there, right? It's a luxury space and it's very inviting. And maybe that nightly rate can go up and maybe the occupancy increases a little bit. And then the other thing that you really haven't touched on here in this analysis, because you're looking at them as distinct units, I mean, you have the ability to create listings that are combinations, right?
Yeah.
So Kyle will work with the booking window because the smaller the unit, the more the guests are going to tend to book more last minute. And the big houses, they're booking way in advance. So
Yeah.
Kyle can create a listing that's the whole house at a very high nightly rate. And if somebody's planning a big group, they're going to book that, and they're going to book it 6 months or 9 months in advance, and bang, you're done. You don't have to worry about the individual units. Then as we get closer, well, now we have to start breaking it up and offering the smaller units because different size groups are going to book at a different rate. So this is showing the sort of the synthesis translated into the 3 units, but how you'll actually manage this to optimize revenue and occupancy and booking is going to be very different, and it's going to include all those combinations, correct?
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the other thing,
Yeah.
right? We clearly have a 5 bedroom listing that can sleep potentially up to 16. I think we could potentially get there.
And then everybody gets to enjoy the kitchen. Gets to enjoy the game room. Everybody gets to enjoy that great living space. So I think that there is an opportunity to really appeal at a high nightly rate to that big group. And then again, squeeze as much revenue as possible out through the combination of the smaller units. And if I show you photos before we get to this point, you will see that the architecture is an Adobe Brick architecture. So I think that does a couple of things. Number one, it's unique, and everybody wants to stay in something unique. I think going back to your fire insurance, it may be that number, but I think the fire insurance will probably be enhanced by the fact that Adobe Brick is a pretty fire resistant material. And you talked about common walls that I think that we'll probably get some sound deadening out of that as well. Not as if it were 3 distinct structures with space in between, but I don't think we're going to have maybe some of those issues that we might have if it's just a stick built wood house that sort of vibrates around. So hopefully that will help. So give us the bottom line. These numbers you're showing, I mean, cash on cash, almost 13%. Is that good compared to a lot of properties you look at?
Yes, that's definitely good compared to a lot of properties that I look at. The cash on cash number does seem lower for this just because of the amount of improved capital, but the capitalization rate is really, really strong, and the monthly net profit is really, really strong. When I look at properties, the general goal is to be somewhere between 10 to 15% cash on cash and a monthly net profit of hopefully $1,000. This can be a really good cash flowing asset with these improvements up front. So I think honestly, it's going to just really improve the property as a whole, having these additional features. And honestly, the cash on cash number changes quite a bit if I just go ahead and add another 10% in.
While you're doing that to the spreadsheet, though, I want to make a couple of points. Number one, where are you going to put your cash and get a solid almost 13% return, right?
Yeah.
So even with interest rates higher, there's not a lot of investment vehicles that are going to get you that kind of return. That's number one. And number two, and sometimes investors in short-term rentals miss this or don't properly account for it, is all of this is going into an appreciating asset.
Yeah.
And we've seen close to 10% annual appreciation for the last 5 years in Madera County. So don't forget that part, right? Because if you're
Oh,
making 10% on your cash and appreciating at 10%, I mean, when you look back at this investment 5, 10, 15 years down the road, I mean, you've really created some wealth for your family that is going to be hard to replicate. So, I think that a lot of investors are just so focused on cash flow and the cash on cash returns that sometimes they kind of overlook that. But I think that even if you use a very, very conservative assumption of 5% and then annualize that out over 10 years, now you've got something that's been generating cash and returns, but then is worth a lot more at the end. And all these improvements that Kyle's describing are going to enhance the value in resale, and the business that's being run using this as a short-term rental will make it attractive to the next investor as well. So you've got both owner occupied for residency or investment vehicle as your potential downstream market for this property. So anyway, I just want to make that point so we don't miss it.
absolutely. Just talking about the monthly revenue, about if we just increase these rates roughly an overall 10% increase, right? Now we're at a 19%, right?
Wow.
Even if
Right.
we're 5% above what I analyzed, then we're up to a 16% cash on cash return. So I was just looking at one. If I take that back out, there is a property not too far that's like, it is a 6 bedroom, 4 bath. That's really close to this property. It basically is doing 168,000 in revenue,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's out of the realm for this to potentially be up to that number with everything that's going to be done to this property, right? That property, I have it up, but I don't even think it has a hot tub. It has a really nice game room, but they're doing a similar approach to
Yeah.
listing that generally makes sense. And when I look down to doing the full combined things and I look at a 693 nightly rate, there's plenty of properties up here in the mountains that are doing over $1,000 in nightly rate during the summertime. The beauty of just being able to market it in multiple different avenues and having the right booking window strategies for the different windows and how we manage revenue. So again, I'm definitely quite bullish on this property, and I feel like I haven't even done it enough justice by seeing this 12.7% cash on cash return.
And by the way, the reason we had this video session today is Kyle and I, we met at this property and we showed it together once. But again, the more he dug into the numbers, the more interesting this became. And we felt like it would be a good opportunity to share that.
Yeah.
We're going to get this posted as quickly as I can. We'll also edit in the listing. So you see the listing as well as the walkthrough and the floor plan so you can visualize all this. And then, Kyle, we can share with some of the clients that we've been working with so they get a sense. And then remember, Kyle and I'll put your contact info in the description on this video, Kyle. So, if you want to go deeper on this property, or maybe you've seen another property that really appeals to you and you'd like to have the team take a look, Kyle and I work together on these, and we've got combined a lot of experience here in the mountains helping investors make great investments, find great properties, operate them at the highest level. And we'll be going into a lot of analysis of the market and some of the dynamics. I'll just throw this in here. A lot of people ask us, well, is there saturation? I see all these Airbnbs. But if you buy the right property, you set it up well, and then you operate it like Kyle operates his properties, then you're going to be the cream of the crop. And guess what? There's always a market for that. And when we see current Airbnbs that are being sold, it's because the owners just didn't really know what they were doing. And then the free market system takes over, and somebody can pick that property up and then turn it into a much better returning assets.
I just wanted to add one thing about saturation.
Yes.
I don't want to speak for other operators, but I actually do saturation calculations and break it down and look at the year over year growth on a macroeconomic scale for all the markets that I operate in. So, and I'm going to be the one to tell you whether it is actually a good time to sell based off of your property type and what's going on with the market. That's something that I'm not sure a lot of operators necessarily do those yearly reviews or 6 month reviews, because you can look at them like every 6 months or so. Any more than that for saturation, it's way too hard to tell. You need a lot more time and data to really see how the year ends up. But yeah, I can tell you how well 4 bedrooms did year over year in the Oakhurst market or in the Fresno market. And the good thing is, Oakhurst actually had, even with the increase of listings, still significant revenue growth. It had its biggest revenue in
Yeah.
2023. So I have them in my spreadsheet, but roughly like almost everything went up by 5 to 10%, except for 5 bedrooms. 5 bedrooms average year over year went down by 5%. So anyway, that's
Okay, well, we are going to save the deep dive on that for another video, Kyle. This is the first of many. Thank you for the time. And I got to get this one edited and posted. So thank you.
alrighty.
Hi, we are at Road 425B, and we're going to have an opportunity to take a look at an amazing home. This is an Adobe Brick home, very unique architecture, One of the big highlights is that it can easily be divided into 2 units, which certainly improves occupancy, especially during the winter months. But let's go ahead and take a look inside, and then we'll take a walk around outside, and hope you like it. All right, so we are just going to enter. We've got this little sort of semi-mud room. We've got through here one of the bathrooms. So this has got a tub shower combo. Get a little more light in here. Pardon the fan. So it looks like it's in good shape. I think in general you're going to find that this house is very well maintained. Little desk nook. Step into the main living, dining area, open to the kitchen. We've got one bedroom here. Lighting is a little dark, but certainly cozy with the barn door off the main living. And second bedroom here, which is currently used as kind of an office hangout space. We'll just work our way around and take a look at the kitchen and the rest of this portion of the house. So nice granite counters, beautiful cabinets. Appliances all look great. So stainless appliances, and you've got this breakfast nook in addition to the open living dining. So, I mean, this by itself would be certainly a fabulous 2-bedroom rental unit. And stepping onto this side, now, currently, the owner is running a hairdressing business out of this. That could be a bedroom. And what you see here is a private entrance. So when I say it can be divided, it can be very logically divided with 2 groups that are not interfering with each other. So we've got this bedroom, which is kind of divided into 2 sleeping spaces. So the occupancy for this area or for this home is high. And we've got this area being used as a game room, laundry room back here with a bath and shower. So actually, let me correct myself. This property could actually be 3 units because you've got a door there. You've got the main door that we came in. You've got a full bath in here with the potential for 2 bedrooms. And then over here, we've got this beautiful suite, which has its own entrance. So this comes in from the other side of the house. And you can see you can just work your way around here and come to this entrance. So yeah, that's amazing. Great potential. And again, a large suite like this will definitely stay occupied anytime you're not renting the full house. So you've got then the option of renting the whole house to a large group, dividing it into medium and small, or 3 smaller units. So tremendous opportunity, and this you can see is a very, very nice primary bathroom attached to the primary suite, which is kind of semi-separated from the house. So Yeah, so many options. And I think difficult to forecast or project on AirDNA because AirDNA doesn't really incorporate the ability to divide it up. So, all right, with that being the entire interior, let's go ahead and step out this entrance to what would be the patio area for potentially just that portion, or again, depending on how you want to manage it, could be shared with the other unit there. This will all be removed, but you've got patio dining along with an area to barbecue. So I want to show the other side, so let's step across and see the outdoor area from the primary suite. So again, on this side, we've got a fire pit there and a little backyard area there, and that is creek which is running now, so you've got a little bit of frontage there, and you've got this secondary patio with a hot tub currently, some patio furniture, storage, barbecue, and then this wraps around. And you can see again the unique architecture, which I think is going to really play well in the Airbnb listing. So you can give your potential guests a sense of the uniqueness of the property. Come back through here, and this is off this big living area. So lots of options in terms of how you divide and how you configure your individual listings. Airbnb will do a very good job of helping you to manage your parent-child listings. So you have a parent listing that's the entire house, and then you have individual listings that are nested underneath that, and Airbnb will manage your calendar for you to make sure that you don't have double booking. So anyway, there you have it. I think this is a very, very solid option. Great investment potential, and I think we'll do really, really well in our area. And I just will mention we're just a few minutes from town here, so it's not quite walkable, but you can get into restaurants and stores very, very quickly. So it's a convenient location. We're gonna just take a quick look in this garage. No, we're not. It's locked. Okay, that's all right. All right, well, just found out we don't have the key, but this is a detached garage, and again, would make a great game room or other use. So in addition to the house, which again, you can see from the listing photos or from this exterior view, super unique in terms of just rolling up to it and staying in something that is not your ordinary house on Airbnb. So tremendous potential.